everybody. I'm here today with Tiare Lawrence. She is the 2018 candidate for State Representative District 12, which includes Spreckelsville, parts of Upcountry, and Kahului. We're going to walk story. Thank you for joining us today,
Thank you
Tiare.
for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your ties to Maui? What makes you want to be a state representative?
Oh, well, I'm born and raised Maui girl, grew up in Lahaina, and truly at the forefront of what makes me want to be a state house representative is I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, and I've seen so many of my friends and family have to move to the continent because they simply can't afford to live here. So at the forefront of why I decided to run for office is for our keiki, for their future. Yeah.
The person that you're running against, Kyle Yamashita, he has been in office for about 10 years.
About 14 years now.
Oh, 14 years. Okay,
he's
so
been in there for a long time.
What makes you think it's time for a change? Why do you think you're the right person to deliver that change?
We have a lot of systemic problems that are affecting our working class families, and for too long, our leadership has been driven by special interests, corporations and lobbyists. And I think now more than ever, especially with Central Maui up for grabs and everything happening on Maui, is that we need leadership that is people-driven, community engaged, and Aina-based. And that's what I want to bring to the state legislature.
Awesome. So I have heard that you as a community organizer had put a lot of work in for SB 3095,
Yes.
which was our historical chlorpyrifos ban.
Yes.
What was your experience trying to get that passed?
Going up against corporations and those special interests, they love to use fear tactics. They love to make it difficult for us who are just on the front line trying to protect the health of our keiki. What I learned from it is how much money is floating around the state capitol. And so I'd like to change that. And I think that whenever it comes to our keiki, when it comes to their health, it should never take 5 years to pass simple, common sense legislation to protect the health of our communities. But unfortunately, that's what we have to deal with. Yeah.
So, what do you think is the next step for pesticide use, for agrochemical corporations? What kinds of regulations or laws would you bring to the state council?
I definitely would support more pesticide regulation, especially ones that are cancer-causing chemicals and neurotoxins. And so I think that's something that we need to look at. But most importantly, I think the best thing we can do right now is to support our small-scale local businesses, our local farmers. And at the forefront, we need to get some of those lands back into the hands of the public so that we can create these new sustainable economic opportunities for the people of Maui.
And earlier you mentioned the cost of living and this brain drain that's happening where young people are moving away. Families are finding it hard to make a living here on these islands. What are some of your ideas to support working families or to support young people?
I think we need to use policy. I think there's reform that we can do, especially around housing, that would more benefit our working class families. But I'd also like to be an advocate for funding. I think we need to look at new revenue sources. Funding is an issue. We have the Department of Agriculture only gets 0.03% of the entire state budget. How are we ever going to double food production and create these new economic models here in Hawaii when we're not funding them? And so some of these departments are severely underfunded. So I want to be an advocate to, look at new sources,
Right.
but also making sure that money goes where it's needed most.
Okay. So if we're talking about like reallocating some funds to these types of services and support systems, where would you think we should take that money from, or how do you think we should get that money? Are you in support of raising some taxes?
I am not in support of raising the GET at this moment unless the legislature does pass earned income tax credits so that those credits can be passed on to our working families, especially those that live off of a minimum wage. It's those people that suffer the brunt anytime the GET is increased. But I would look at new revenue sources. Maybe we need to have a deeper conversation of what legalizing marijuana could do for our community. It's working in Oregon and Colorado where they're able to fund education. And, so I think we need to look at new revenue sources. But also, I think right now on Maui in particular, 60% of our economic driver is tourism driven. We know tourism's doing great. It's booming. So can we take some of that money that's going off and marketing Hawaii for a little bit and actually put it into infrastructure needs. And so I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but we lack the political will at the state legislature to truly get it done.
Okay. Awesome. Is there a legislator that is currently in office that you look to as like a role model, or somebody you feel is fighting the good fight that we could look at as citizens and say, okay, Tiare might be another one of these faces?
You know, I love Senator Ruderman and Senator Gabbard. They were our champions for SB 3095 on the Senate side. On the House side, I would say that I support Representative Lopresti, Representative Cregan, Representative Lowen. You know, I think that these people really do put the interests of their community and the people first. And so, yeah, I definitely aloha them, and I'm inspired.
Cool. So from your work with the community, what would you say are the three main concerns that Maui citizens have?
You know, in talking to my community, everyone's fearful of what's going to happen to Central Maui. And so I would say the three top priorities is agriculture, what's going to happen there and how are we going to support agriculture, the future of agriculture on Maui. Second is housing. We have a severe crisis among our hands, and unfortunately we're supporting these developments that are temporary. You know, 201H housing, what I want to do at the state level is reform this policy, make sure that if they're going to be receiving all of these credits and incentives, that these homes stay affordable much longer than 10 years. So there's work that we can do there. And then third is infrastructure. You know, our wastewater is going into our ocean. You know, Hana Highway, it's hurting the quality of life for a lot of our local residents. Especially, you know, we have residents from up country that commute to Kaanapali every day, sitting in an 1.5 to 2 hour traffic a day. I've been on the front line advocating for the realignment of Honoapi'ilani Highway, not only to protect our reef, but to protect the quality of life here on Maui. And for me personally, I lived on Oahu for 8 years, and you know, if we don't get engaged, if we don't step up, we're on the verge of turning into the next Honolulu. And I think everyone on Maui can agree that we don't want to head down that road.
Do you have a message for Maui's people then? It seems like you're really in touch with the community. You've done a lot of community organizing. Do you have a message for Maui's community and Maui citizens?
Engagement, engagement, engagement. If we don't participate, if we don't show up when we need to, then we're going to continue the status quo. And you know, we have to break that plantation mind, the chains, and really start to get involved and stop thinking about just ourselves, but really start to think about our keiki and their future. And so my message to Maui is get engaged, get involved, and start showing up.
All right. Thank you, Tiare. We are at the banyan tree. That means it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for your time today. Don't forget to vote on August 11th in the primaries and November 6th in the general election.
Aloha!